Barbara, welcome to the show. Great to have you here.
Delighted to be here.
What are the biggest misconceptions people carry about their voices?
So many, Bradley. The one is that they have no control over how it sounds. They just feel like they're fatalists about their voice. What they have is what they have. There's a lot more available than most of us can even imagine. And another misconception is that it really doesn't matter that much. And it really is at the heart of any kind of in-person communication, whether it's at work, in your family, in your community. It is really the determinant in some ways of whether your gifts get out into the world and whether you connect with other people.
We don't think about it that much. I mean, I do as a speaker, but many people just say, I can't sing, or that's just how it is, or I've got a terrible voice. Whereas you're saying it's something that we can coach and develop and express better.
Exactly. Yes, most of us live in a tiny little closet in a great big mansion, metaphorically speaking. We work in maybe a small little part of our voice, and it might work great for certain things, or it might be terrible for the rest of your life. And so tone, I work with tone a lot. I do help people sing if they want to do that because I am a singer and I think singing is a human right. However, many of the people I work with are interested in just being more skillful communicators, being able to shift when something's not working. Like if we get that kind of frown and that kind of backing off thing, a lot of us know when we're not connecting, but we don't know what to do about it. And so my work is organized around increasing awareness of your own voice, becoming more flexible in how you use it, and then it also has a lovely side benefit of making you a better listener. Because you won't just be listening to the words, you'll also be listening to what's underneath them, which is often more truthful.
What got you into this work? Why did you become interested in voice?
Oh, I had problems with my voice. Like many of us find our way into our work by falling on our head and getting back up over and over again. So I grew up singing. I had a really wonderful singing experience in choral music, but singing alone was utterly terrifying, and that is not unusual. But I come from solo singers. My grandfather sang on the radio in Iowa when my mother was a child. My mother was a solo singer. My brother was a solo singer. And I felt like I was going to die every time. And I thought, what is wrong with me? That loving question, what's wrong with me? And I got curious about what was going on with this life-threatening fear. And that led me on a journey to work with a local voice coach. Mostly I cried when I started to just make sound in her presence. And then she sent me to this workshop with these people who work with extended range voice expression, not just speaking, not just singing, but sound. And that blew my life wide open. And that's how I got interested in working with the voice beyond speaking and singing, and starting with opening up all the color, all the sound that's available.
I love podcasting because you discover these worlds within worlds that I would never have known about. My work is based on speaking to people. That's where I do most of my work that actually pays the bills. And yet it's just been a sneaky suspicion that sometimes I get it right, sometimes I'm able to project. And you have to if you're in a room of 50 people and there's no microphone. And often I'll get a sore throat. But I've never really thought about this range and the tone. And for someone who is a leader, who's out there, or a speaker, what are some things that we can do? What should we consider when using our voices?
Well, let me begin by just telling you how I think about the voice. I've created a framework. I've now written 2 books about it and done a TED Talk about it. And it feels like it is my secret sauce. It's a unique approach. So I divide the voice into 5 distinct elements of earth, fire, water, metal, and air. And each one, you can hear, has a particular vocal sound. And each one can be used for specific things. like earth, is great for expressing authority and gravitas, calm, but it might not be the most exciting thing to listen to for an hour, right? But it's good for saying no and training puppies. Fire is great for public speaking. It's about passion, taking up space, being seen and heard, and also really activating your physical vitality. Water is the voice of the heart. So if you have bad news to deliver, if someone is struggling in your presence, if it's an intimate conversation, anything your heart has to say, the water might be a good choice. A lot of healers have water voices. Metal is good for when the microphone dies, or if you're getting hoarse. So can you hear it's a little pointier, it's a little brighter? A lot of sports coaches have this. Hey, listen up, okay, we're going to do another, it's a way of really projecting. And so a little bit of metal can help you be heard in a crowded place or with a person who needs a hearing aid but doesn't have one yet. It's just very bright and it's great for getting louder without strain. And finally, the air voice is a great voice for awakening the imagination. So you can say, let me tell you a story about that. And most speakers know, good speakers use story all the time. And that kind of takes us somewhere else. Can you feel that? Right? And it's also good for talking about the future. I have an idea. It's fascinating. So I think having that little decoder ring, being able to access all those and still feel authentic. All of those are just human qualities. But a lot of times people say, oh, that just doesn't feel like me. I have a low voice, or I'm a this way, or I'm a that way. It's like, yeah, so what? That's a nice story. What else have you got outside that story? So that's how I think about and train and encourage people to expand their vocal range in an intelligent way based on what their purpose is.
And that's what you call vocal intelligence, which is the title of your next book?
Yeah, it's right here. The paperback just came out. I like it better on audiobook, but it is vocal intelligence. Yeah.
Fantastic. Okay. So your voice is an instrument and you can learn to play it better. You don't say, I've got a guitar and it's only got one string. We can all learn to play all of these strings to connect with all of those elements.
Correct. Yes. And the ones you dislike the most generally have the greatest gifts for you because they just represent a part of your humanity that may be less expressed. I did not like the air voice. I'm a very tall woman and I'm smart and I could never pull off that feminine, in quotes, girly thing. So I didn't think that had anything to do with me at all. And there was a lot of limits to my voice because of it. I thought my voice ended here when I went to my first workshop with my teachers. And in that workshop, I went almost to the top of the piano. And this has changed my whole life. My story just was exploded. And so, but that air voice felt like I had a lid on top of my sense of wonder and lightness and childlike delight. And so as that voice returned, it brought a lot of gifts back with it. And now I sing there a lot and speak there. Mm-hmm.
Why do you think you had the block with the air voice?
Oh, like everybody, I had to grow up way too fast. Basically all of us ran screaming out of childhood really quickly for various reasons. And I do have a low voice. I come from tall, low-voiced people. But, when we're little children, this is how we sound, So I think there was some trauma wrapped up in that, some cultural stuff around the kind of woman I didn't think I wanted to be. So I think it was kind of a mishmash of culture, trauma, habit.
It's almost that self-protection. Don't reveal that part of you. It's no longer relevant in the world. And I think so many of us are afraid to reveal the true voice because we've wrapped ourselves in so many layers that protect us from, whatever, feeling vulnerable, feeling exposed. And yet, when you went through that range before, it doesn't have to signal vulnerability. It's just express. It sounds amazing, and I guess professional speakers, when you see people who present TED Talks, they've probably had some form of voice coaching in order to go from the depth of the story up to the lightness and then back down, and they take you on a journey, right?
The good ones do.
Yeah. So this is something we can learn.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. I've learned a lot through a lot of different modalities. I think a lot of us have. What surprises me about this is how fun it is, because it's also terrifying, can be. But the way I help people get out of their voice box, their little self-concept, is by pretending to be someone that they're not, using archetypes or characters. And exaggerating it. So, to get to the earth voice, we don't say, well, just play with your earth voice. We become like fee, fi, fo, fum. We become trolls or giants or big, stupid, hairy people. I don't know. And it's fun to inhabit these characters because they change your voice, but also they help you remember how to get back there. So I'll use an Italian tenor for fire and have people singing about the pasta, lasagna, and then I'll have people being a drunk British lady for water. Oh, have a bit of tea, and a witch. I'll use a witch or a cat for the metal, and then sometimes birds for the air voice, or how we say hi to pets and babies. That's always a easy way to get even the most stubbornly solid earthy person to go up into air. It's like, hi, who's a good puppy? Who's a good dog? We talk to babies and dogs there. So that is part of that practice, is to just explore these characters that might inform you about who else you can be in your life and your expression.
And do you think that it can change how present you are and how, ultimately, if you can express yourself more clearly and tell better stories, that's what AI can't do, put it that way.
Correct.
We can have more success in life. People will be more attracted to what we have to say.
Absolutely. And it also has, this was I did this for my voice originally. What it's helped me also do, and my pupils over the years, my clients, is to feel more whole as a human being, because you can't change your voice without your life coming along for the ride. So you can't get more grounded in your earth without something settling and becoming more grounded in your life. And so the voice is the doorway in, but the result can be that you end up feeling more whole, which is also better for your health, better for your work and relationships, to just feel more 360 as a person.
It's so interesting because there are so many techniques and methods for improving your mental health and so forth, being able to be present, but voice is just there. It's such an important part of you. And I know that people have said to me in the past, stop talking like that. It sounds funny or whatever. It sounds silly. Whereas accessing those parts of you might be exactly what we need to, to come out of our shell, to feel whole, as you said. And it feels good too. I know when I'm by myself, singing in the shower, for example, it feels amazing. And I don't know why we close these parts of us off, but it's nice to know that there is a method for actually unlocking that. Does voice, does it change, of course, based on your physicality? If you're a tall person, you probably can access deeper tones. Is it possible to train yourself to be able to match that, or do you just play to your own unique strengths?
I'm smiling because I was in a show. I'm a performer also, and I was in a show recently, and there was a barbershop quartet. These guys who were like 80 years old, and they've been singing together for decades. And the highest voice, the highest tenor voice, was a man who he was probably 6'8", I don't know, maybe 2 meters. Just a huge, tall man with a big nose. He looked like a cartoon character, and a really deep speaking voice like this. And then he would sing, "Way up here at the Highland Park," and I loved him so much. It was like, what am I seeing and hearing? A speaking voice like that, and then effortless. And most of us lose higher range as we get older. He actually, sadly, just died this year. So they had a different person in his role at the show I did recently. Yes, I have been doing this for so long, and I like to encourage people to sing in the shower, in the car, as a way to just open more vocal strength and flexibility and expression. It's just a partway between speaking and sound is song. So it's a great way to just sort of do some yoga, a little more range of motion. I have had more people tell me, like almost proudly, how terrible they are at singing. And it's like, who do we run around and say, you know what, I'm a horrible parent or I'm a terrible driver, with great conviction. Very few people, I think it's 2% of the population, are actually tone deaf. They cannot hear a note. Many people don't have perfect pitch, but there's a whole bunch of space between tone deaf and perfect pitch, and many of us don't get any support or guidance in how to find their way into singing more pleasurably. So I've worked with a lot of people who were told they couldn't sing from a young age. One woman was in her 50s. She never even sang happy birthday to her children. And she came to work with me, and I was just, working with my piano a little bit, and she was matching the pitch. I'd play a note, she'd sing it. I'd play a note, she'd sing it, as part of the exercises. And I told her, and that's not what she was doing there. She wasn't there to sing. She was there because she was wearing out her voice. She was using the wrong tool for the job, right? And just wearing it out. And so we addressed that too. But in the meantime, I said, oh, by the way, you're not tone deaf. You can sing fine. And she just burst into tears. And on the way home that day, she called her adult sons and sang happy birthday to both of them and said, I'm so sorry I never sang to you. Can you imagine? That's a kind of poverty, And so much of it is, I have a whole theory about why singing is so dangerous. It's because we're unguarded. That's why it's so touching. We can talk from our head, but it's really hard to sing from our head, and we're open all the way down and in, and it's a vulnerable thing to do. But that's why it's so necessary.
I remember being in the choir at school up until a certain age, until my voice deepened, and then it was no longer cool. So I think I had to go and do military cadets on the field or something like that. This is growing up in South Africa. And from then on, I used to just mouth the words. I wouldn't actually sing. It became this thing of you did feel really vulnerable. My daughter tells me that she never sings because, and it's partly you don't want to hear your own voice. What if it sounds terrible and you're judged? So you played the piano there. Is it possible to start testing with a piano? We've got a little keyboard at home where you try and match your voice to the different keys. Is that a good starting point?
You can't. No, it's actually, it's not a bad idea, but it's a boring idea. I think What I would like to suggest is that people make a playlist of their favorite songs that they can't resist singing.
Yeah.
And make sure they're things you can sing without hurting yourself or feeling uncomfortable. Some songs are just in the wrong key or wrong range or wrong gender. But they should be things that just like I can't resist Pharrell Williams' Happy. Step along if you feel like a rip. You know, that just is like, turns my blood into champagne. It's just effervescent. So to make a variety, you know, get some Leonard Cohen or some belty rock and roller, some Mick Jagger or Janis Joplin, or get like a crooner, like a Tony Bennett, or somebody who's like sings Moon River. Get some twangy bluegrass. Dolly Parton is a good example. And then like something dreamy, like those Irish singers like Enya. You know, you shouldn't be driving a car because it makes you so spaced out. But I just think like, and Billie Eilish is another big superstar right now who has a very airy voice. So you can make a playlist of songs you love in different sounds and have it pop on in your car or when you're cleaning the bathroom or something. Just sing a lot more and then just notice how it feels in your body, what's happening. And then you can experiment with playing, you know, with that and speaking. Another kind of halfway point between singing and regular speech is poetry. And so I work with a lot of people who are primarily using this work as in speaking to work with poetry because it's more eloquent speech. It requires more vocal color. So poetry is great also.
Okay. I've really enjoyed returning to my guitar over the past few years and just singing and enjoying it. And then I heard from my partner, wow, that's actually really nice. Can you play more? Which was amazing because I never sang in front of people. So that was nice. And choosing a range of songs. I mean, I did experiment with Whitney Houston and things like that, which didn't go as well as I would have liked. But it's practice, right? No, but it really did. It's so relaxing, one, but I think it also helps with the speaking side of things as well. So poetry is another very interesting idea. So for a speaker, how can you warm yourself up? Because I mentioned to you before we started recording, for example, next week, I have 3 sessions in 2 days and travel between the 2 islands of New Zealand. And I find I get a sore throat without fail after these intense stretches. Is there anything you can do to warm yourself up correctly? Because I never do. I just walk out on stage and just go for it. But to try and ensure that your voice is healthy and cared for.
There's a bunch of things. I have to say one of the most forgotten things is water. Hydration. Lots and lots, which is dangerous when you have a long session because,
yes.
you know, because it's like, okay, I'm hydrated, but we don't have a break for another 45 minutes and I'm going to have to like work myself through this. So water is a really good basic thing. One of the favorite warm-ups I do a couple of them when I need to, is yawning, voicing your yawn. Oh, now your listeners are all going to start yawning, which is great because it's really good for your blood flow, oxygen, and it's a great stretch for your jaw. Oh, and just to like drag your hands down your face and just like, because a lot of us carry tension in our jaw. And so that opens us up to the depth of our voice. The other warm-up I really love is just sliding around like a wolf howl. This is hard to do when you're in a public place, so I don't know, maybe in the car somewhere, but like the just sliding around. It's like yoga for your voice, just moving it all around. I do like to get physically awake too, so I sometimes do some I did about 10 minutes of Taekwondo in my 30s and didn't want to hit anyone, so I ran out of steam. But I still love the punch and the ha, kya, kya, that kind of getting that energy, physical energy going. Because a lot of times what causes vocal strain is repetitive stress. Like if you're using the same quality of voice, and I think this is probably what gets you in trouble. You have a lovely voice, by the way. There's nothing wrong with it. But my sense is I bet you just use the same thing, the same tone over and over. And when we do that with our wrists or our backs, we get an injury. So I think that is one thing that gets people in trouble. The other one is going way too fast and not breathing, not fueling, not pausing, not bringing more life force through your vocal cords. And a quick, thing that I've worked with lots of impatient executives and leaders over the years. They're like, I need something right now, because a lot of this work is pretty transformational, but then there's the practical. One doorway in to speaking more sustainably is to bring a little bit of a sense of singing into how you talk. And you have an advantage because you're already singing. So a lot of us just talk, we just clip our words, and there's not like a through line, there's not a melody going on, and it's just like And if you just bring a little sense of song, not to be sing-songy and irritating, but to just bring more of a sense of flow into how you're talking, hook it together with a little bit more tone to make your vocal cords much happier.
As you say that, I realize that there are moments in my presentations where the audience is captivated, and it's always the storytelling. And in the storytelling, I vary my voice naturally because I go so I went to Bangladesh and I met this first surfer who discovered a surfboard on the beach that was left by a missionary. And he said, and I naturally vary it, so it's just more of that, I think, which would probably keep the interest high throughout the session. I keep the interest because I vary the activities and I get audience interaction and turn it into, I call it edutainment. It's part comedy, part learning about tools that can help you on your journey of life. But it's the storytelling where people, I can see that I've got them in the palm of my hand. So I suppose it's doing more of that and actually improving. I believe that I could improve in how I tell the stories based on what you've just told me, incorporating the elements.
Yes. And I've worked with speakers on crafting their talks. I do edutainment as well. I sing and talk about these ideas, so I totally understand what you're doing. And it is surprising to people. They're like, oh, everybody's used to the speaker, the yada, yada, yada speaker. But I actually sometimes can suggest that people almost do it like a choreography. Like, I'm going to go down in here, and then we're going to slow. Because it's not just the tone, that's mostly what I work with, but there's also pace. So to be able to pause, take a breath, and then build some excitement. And do you know what happened then? You won't believe it. Oh my goodness. And that variation also changes your body and your face. A lot of men I've worked with have the dead face. It was the thing that made you stop choir, right? Like, I have to be manly. And that means that my face and my body are dead. Heartbreaking to me. Because, and I had a similar deadness. I'm not a man, but I had a similar I used to hide out here in my earth voice, just out of not wanting to be so visible. However, I do see a lot of dead men walking. Because it's just, the masculine ideal is so narrow, and it has a lot to do with control and deadness and not feeling, not moving, not emoting, not being, expressive, because then you're gay.
Oh yeah, that's so true.
Right?
Mm.
And that homophobia, I was in the middle of a session when I really got that. And I Yeah, it was a little scary because the president of the firm was a former Marine. And I was like, how is this going? How is this going to work? And it did. It went really, really well. But I had to, it was a group of men, and I had to say, you want to be better leaders. You want to invite more of the whole person into this workplace. And that means you need to expand your range of expression beyond just blah, 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 blah. And I said, I bet anything that the homophobia is going to come up. And I need you to promise never to tease each other or any other man in your firm for being too expressive. Because that's how a lot of men keep other men in line, is they joke, they tease. Oh, just kidding. So that broke my heart, and just to consider. I mean, I know how it is to be a woman and the different controls and weird things that the culture puts on us, but it really broke my heart about what a narrow world. It's a kind of girdle that men wear.
And we're missing out on the positive emotions that you will experience when you are telling your story authentically and when you can get excited. I think by default you're numbing your own excitement just to be socially acceptable, or what you perceive to be socially acceptable. I know I'm a bit more expressive than the average man I meet in a workshop or in a corporate environment. And I do sometimes wonder if I'm judged based on it. But you can always give some context, like I am Brad or I am John, I am a father of 4, and I express myself clear. Maybe it's about setting the context so that people are not, I don't know, so that you and the others relax and just let you be who you are. What do you think?
You know, I feel like, well, I'm in my 60s now, and I just don't care as much what people think about me. Yeah. I know that what I'm doing is valuable. I know it is not for every single person. I used to find the person in the room who was the most unhappy looking and bend over every which way I could to try to win them over. I now just let them stew in whatever juice they're stewing. It probably has their dog died. They're mad, they're sad, they didn't sleep well. I don't know. I look for the people who are lit up because they are the ones who are going to make use of my work. And I give people full permission to participate. I mean, I get rooms full of people acting foolish. So I always give people the option of listening, of not participating, of deciding what they want to do and not do, and to continue to pay attention, because you can learn a lot by listening and observing. And then I ask them for their point of view. But I just don't care a lot less, and I give people options of how they want to participate. And then I let it all go. I just figure whatever. And the more fun I'm having, the more irresistible I am. Right?
Absolutely. I was listening to a neuroscientist recently. Her name is Lisa Feldman Barrett, and she said, what people think of me is just electrical activity in their skull. It's really not that important.
It's great. And I also do a lot of work at hospice. I have a little volunteer choir, and we go sing for people who are at the end of their lives in groups of 4 or 5. And being present at the end of life has taught me a lot about what really matters. And what some cranky stranger thinks of me is not important. It is not important. At the end of the day, it's like, did I give my gifts? Did I love people, let them know that I love them, and did I receive their love? That's about it.
That's about it. That is something to contemplate for everyone out there. What are some examples of people finding their voice? Some of your clients?
Well, I had this one fellow who saw himself on a video, great earth voice, wonderful leader, but he was talking about how passionate he was about the work they do. And he was just, we've all had that experience, just like, is that how I sound? Oh, Lord, that was so difficult. And so he was passionate, but he was an introvert. I work with lots of introverts. And I'm right in the middle, so I'm a lot of both. And I love the thoughtfulness, depth, insights, that calm that introverts bring to the workplace and the world. But his passion needed to be more visible, and he was getting ready to do a big presentation at a conference in London. And so I worked with him on his presentation. And one of the things he had a great big fire voice. He actually played trombone as a young man. I thought that was interesting. He found a way to get all that energy out, even though culturally he was out in the middle of the prairies where men were men and quiet and stolid and stoic. So we got his fire voice going, and then I had him practice especially the opening of his speech, like he was a fire and brimstone preacher, like to take it too far. I often invite people to take things way too far and then split the difference. Like, how much of that can you incorporate and still feel like yourself? And he found a lot of joy and vibrancy, and then we also crafted some fun surprises in how he opened and closed his speech. Disarming and interesting and funny, and he came home with lots of new business and lots of positive feedback. So a lot of us have these things in us. We just don't ever get invited to share outside of the lane that we've become accustomed to. So that's one story. And one more was a young woman, and she had a very light voice. A lot of young women do. And she had a brilliant boss. She was in a large corporation in marketing. And before I asked her, her boss sent her to me because he watched her getting passed over. She would say an idea, and then Mark would say it, and people would appreciate Mark's idea, even though she had just said it. Now, some of that was just sexism, let's just name it. But part of it was her voice. And before we got into helping her find different vocal choices, I said, so tell me, are you the person in the room who sees the future before everyone else? And she got this look on her face like, this is a witch, how did you know? She said, my boss says that to me all the time. So sometimes the people who are talking here are also living out in the future. They're living in the dream. They're not really here. And so we had her keep that. I had that other little guy keep what you have. Just figure out other options for when that thing you have is not useful. So the elements are really helpful. It gives us common language and some common sound to work with. And I like to encourage people to keep the gifts they have and then expand into new territory.
And arguably, storytelling is going to be one of the most important leadership skills for the future. It always has been, but increasingly as companies are changing and you've got AI agents in the workforce, those people who are still in the company need to see the bigger picture, and leaders who can not just talk about KPIs and strategy, who can actually tell the story of where we are and why. I created a video about this recently. Storytelling is one of those key skills that everyone needs. So why not learn to use your voice as part of the toolkit?
Exactly. I was an organizational development consultant for 12 years, much to my shock. No training in that at all, but I ended up doing that work, and I was good at it and loved it. I learned a lot. But we had one client who was the president and founder of the firm, and it was like a medium-sized wood products company. And they had a wonderful culture. We helped them build an amazing culture over 10 years. And we realized that part of the onboarding that we wanted to support, we were helping design the orientation and how they welcome people in and show them this is how we do things around here. The founder would tell the three key stories that were emblematic of their culture and their history. And so I worked with him. He was kind of a gruff guy, he kind of talked like this all the time, he was kind of, and he could say, tell me more about that. And everybody thought, he was angry all the time. And he was a passionate and hot hot-blooded guy, but he just sounded angry a lot. So we worked with him on that. But I worked with him on how to craft those stories. So, and kind of work it almost like a song. It's like we're going to enter into this part and then that part. And he practiced it like a speech, because it was. And so that was part of how he worked with his own voice in the stories in service to welcoming people to his company. It was so much fun.
People will remember the stories, and that's what I notice. I can present an entire workshop on how to achieve optimal well-being. People remember a couple of activities, but mostly they remember the story of Nasima, the surfer girl, or the Kung Fu masters I met in Vietnam, because that's what sticks. So learning to tell a really good story might be the most important leadership competency for the future, something that we can develop. I love it. I love it. If there's someone sitting out there thinking, so where do I get started? What are a few simple ways to open up more vocal awareness, flexibility?
Well, I did talk about the singing. That's a good one. Another one that works wonders is to read children's books out loud. Whether you have young children in your life or not, go find some if you don't, because they like to be read to. But even just, fee, fi, fo, fum, I, but, we naturally move our voice around. And so that's a great way to do it. And then just pay attention while you're doing it. It's like, what am I noticing? Is this a comfortable voice? Is this something that feels like me? Just start playing with noticing your own voice and then noticing the voices of the people around you. One of my first professional clients, I was doing this, experimenting with my own work on the side while I was doing my organizational work for many years. And I would just be working with friends or colleagues, musicians or things like that. But one of the first people my colleagues recommended to me was a woman who talked like this. She had amazing gifts as a leader. She had the finances down. She had the people side. She was a great visionary, but nobody could stand to be in the room with her for more than 5 minutes. It was tragic. It was like, oh my gosh, this woman has these amazing gifts, and there's this barrier between those gifts getting into the world, and it's her voice. And so I was having her read children's books and singing as well, but the variety, just being listen to the people around you. I have a TED talk about these 5 elements that if people want to refresh, they can go find them. I'm sure it's in the show notes. I sent it to you, and they can just play with the 5 in their own life, but then also just be listening to people. It's like, is that person who's talking in this way that makes me just want to tell them all my problems? They're probably in the water voice. And how do I feel about that? Am I pulled in by that? Am I repelled? So I think just playing, listening, experimenting, considering what you have to say, and then what tone might be useful. Is it exciting or is it warm and tender? Yeah, just play.
It's interesting that you say that. One of my favorite things to do, and I've been doing it for the past 12 years, and I almost grieve in advance that it might end, is with my daughter. Since she was born, we play with her soft toys, and they've developed, she's got these little teddies, and there's a little turtle, and there's a little octopus, and from birth we've played with them every night, and they go on adventures, and they have really well-defined personalities. We spend an hour doing this every night unless I'm traveling, and they have different voices, and it's so much fun. There's the big one who talks like he's got a deep voice, and then there's the little babies who talk with high voices, and then there's the mum, and it is so much fun. So that's something, if you have young kids, play with their toys, give them characters, create these worlds. Plus, it's a little secret world that you have with your child. If that's one thing that I've enjoyed the most, it's that.
That's a great idea. I love that. And she'll remember that long after you're gone.
Yeah, exactly. So I hope that I've spoken to her. I said, as a teenager, you might not want to do this anymore. She's like, yeah, I will. So I hope it continues, but maybe in some other form. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
There's so many ways.
there's so many ways. Exactly. It's opened me up to really being more expressive. This conversation. I love your impressions as well, by the way. I can really feel the person that you're talking about. It's amazing. I can just picture them. What are some ways that people can access your work?
The easiest way is through my website, BarbaraMcAfee.com. There's both of my TED Talks. I've done one on oral tradition community singing, because I also like getting groups of people singing together without having to perform. So I did one about that, and got 1,000 people to stop singing all at the same time without any direction from me. I haven't gotten over that. The other one is about the voice stuff that we've been talking about today. There's also a lot of music videos. There's some resources for my books and everything. That's the easiest. And I love hearing from people. I love questions. I love stories, comments, anything like that. So don't be a stranger.
And you can coach people virtually?
All the time. I work with people all the time from here in my little piano.
I love it. Can you just tell us about how the people stopped singing? I can't let that one go. You mentioned they stopped at the same time. What does that mean?
Oh my goodness. Well, I've been leading community singing for a very long time, for decades. And because I just have always known people needed to sing together. And without knowing how, reading music, performing, being perfect. Let's just go into that. I was in South Africa many years ago and was astonished at just like how much public singing was happening.
So much.
I loved it. I was like, oh, this feels normal to me. But not so much where I live in the States, not, that's public singing. You're crazy. Usually, they're going to call and have you taken away. But I just would notice in my groups of 30, 40, 50 people, I would do this experiment where I would start a song. Maybe a quarter, a third of the people had never been there before. It was always a different group. And I would start a simple song, a little round or something, and then I would sit down. We were all in a circle. I'd sit down and I would just shut down all my leadership capacities. And I would hold the space for them to find their way. And with time and time again, the group would end all at one time without any blah, 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 blah. And then I tried it with like 50 or 60 people, and then I tried it with 100 people in Wisconsin, 100 clergy people at an event I was at. 100 people did it. And then I did it with 300 people in Canada, and it was like 300 people did it. And when I did that TED Talk, I had never done it with more than 300 people. And I had no plan B, because part of what makes that possible is my conviction. And so I was like, woo, working without a net here. And so I talked about it. I talked about my history with this kind of oral tradition singing, and said, I know that this kind of singing wakes up like a mycelial web, like the trees have. I think it wakes up our collective genius within minutes. How can that happen, that 60 people decide, a third of whom have never sung together, they all decide together collectively to end a song? And so when I did it in Bend, Oregon, I did that TED Talk many years ago now, I got this song started. It was one of a song that I wrote for my nephew, actually, years ago, and I got it going. A friend was keeping a drum beat. He wasn't leading it, but he was just keeping a drum because it was such a big auditorium. And I felt them. I said, they just decided it was over. And then what happened afterwards, it was like that moment of silence after that happened is like one of the moments I'll never forget. It was this, they couldn't believe it. They were so blown away of what they had just done. And then the whole room went crazy.
It sounds incredible. And I agree. Do you think that human voice and singing and language came from imitating nature. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And sound came before words. I've been, was looking at a lot of anthropology when I was especially writing my first book about like how did language come to be, and singing probably came before speech. And singing is a much more, I was blown away. I remember where I was sitting at my dining room table when I was really understanding that human beings transmitted everything via oral tradition. Maybe a little hieroglyphics here and there, but that wasn't just every day. So every single thing humans needed to tell their children, don't eat this mushroom, it killed Uncle Bob. This is our time. Where I live here, we have a lot of maple trees and we do maple syruping. And so the Native American tribe from up north would come down. They actually walked through my friend's farm. Her grandmother remembers them coming through to do maple camp. And they would tap the trees and boil the syrup that they would use all year long. And they would just camp in the valley every spring. I do it here now with my friends as well. And so it's time to tap the trees. This is where you can find good hunting. This is our creation myth. This is how you build our dwelling, make clothes, where you fish. I mean, all the things, everything. Gutenberg happened, the printing press was just a moment ago. But all the other things from human history came out of our faces, out of our voices. I can't get over it.
Wow, what a thought. The story of humanity is the story of our voice and sharing our stories.
And the language tells us this, because in English anyway, the root for the word voice is vocare, which means to call, invoke, or name. It's also the root for vocation, advocacy, provocation, and my favorite, invocation, which is like calling the sacred into the world through the sound of our voices. And right now, as we're talking, the world is wrapped in sacred song. Somebody is chanting mantras, somebody is singing praises, somebody is singing, people are singing all the time to the divine. Always. So you touch on voice. I'm a practical person. I like the business case for using your voice well, but I'm also a mystic. And I also think that our voices are connected to the sacred.
Yeah, I remember arriving in Kathmandu in Nepal and hearing Om Mani Padme Om with that deep tone, and I'll never forget it. In fact, I walked into the shops just to hear more of that, and it was the reverberation or something about it just connects to something, I don't know, beyond what we can name.
Exactly. Yeah, the first time I heard the Gyoto monks from Tibet, or now from India, I was driving my car on a city street in Minneapolis, and I had to pull over. I went into trance, and I don't do that generally. But the sound, and it was a crappy car radio, and I was like, "Whoa! I have to pull over." And it touched something, and then I did get to go see them in person. They came to a concert hall in the Twin Cities, and I don't remember much about it. I went traveling on their voices.
Amazing. Barbara, thank you so much. Really appreciate your time, and thank you for sharing so much of your wisdom and insight. A final word for those who stuck with us to the end.
All right. It's a word. It's a song. This is the song from that TED Talk, and it is my greatest wish for your listeners and everyone I work with. I wish that I could show you. I wish that I could show you. Whenever you are lonely or walking in the dark, I wish that I could show you show you the astonishing light of your being. Those are words by Hafiz. I wish that I could show you whenever you are lonely or walking in the dark the astonishing light of your being.